Morning guys, welcome back to the Pathfinder School. I'm Dave Canterbury, and today in 5 Minutes to Better Bushcraft, we're going to talk about a new variation of the figure 4 trap. I call it the JB figure 4 after my buddy Jamie Burley, who created this design. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about trigger sensitivity and how to create a very sensitive trigger on a figure 4 and why this type triggering mechanism makes the most sense. And I'm going to show you how this trap works and how effective it can be. Stay with me. Okay, I wanted to give you an up-close look at the way this is constructed. It's very, very simple. There's no notch at the top. There's no notch at the back on the lever and fulcrum stick. There's only one notch, and it's a 7 notch that's carved into the bait stick itself. And then there is a simple dish out or flat carved here that actually sweeps up. And that's very important because what that does is it forces you to go from a flat to a round, which releases that bait stick very, very quickly. The unique thing about this trap is, again, it doesn't take any notches. Now, this one's put together with inner tube bands. However, a lot of people don't carry those into the woods. You could also put this together very easily with cordage using a simple bipod style lash that was wrapped and frapped a couple times. I would suspect from looking at the size of this trap, which is really set up for something the size of squirrels, and again, your trap should always be scaled to the game you're trying to kill. I would say that the amount of cordage it takes to make a Paiute deadfall would make this trap. And to me, this is a far superior trap to a Paiute deadfall, especially when you're trying to learn trapping to begin with, because the Paiute deadfall trigger stick has to catch on the deadfall itself, and sometimes that can be tricky to find that particular spot where it will catch and not release too easily. With this one, everything is hung on a notch, and you can see that when you push down on the top, it automatically pushes this stick, gets levered back into the notch, and that's what holds it steady. And having that go to a flat, straight to a round, allows it to release very, very easily with almost no pressure whatsoever. So let's go set this thing up, spring it off, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, we're going to go ahead and lash this up now with cordage and not use the rubber bands. So we need to figure out how things need to go. This needs to sit like this, so we're going to put our bipod lash here. I'm going to cut myself about a foot and a half of cordage. Should be plenty to do this with. And I'm using number 8 bank line, I believe it is, for this. And I'm just going to come in here and start off with a timber hitch and do a regular bipod lash. And you can see that bipod lash on lots and lots of videos that my instructors have out there on the web. So I won't go through this whole thing on video with you, but that's the lash that I'm going to use here. Is going to be a bipod lash. I'm going to leave a little bit of space in there and not go too tight with it because I want to put a couple fraps in there as well. I'm just going to take about 3 wraps around this thing. Then I'm going to come in from the bottom and do my fraps over the top to separate things and give myself a pivot point, just like that. 3 fraps. When I come back around, I'm going to finish it with a clove hitch. Now, I've got this all lashed up, and it all folds up into this when you're done, if you were going to make several of these in your camp beforehand. The beauty of this, in my mind, one of the other bonuses to this design that Jamie came up with is that because you've lashed all of these things, all of these will roll and rotate, which means if you're not lined up exactly where you should be, like that flat, maybe when you lashed it up, that flat was turned sideways. You can turn that in the lashing and get that lined up where you need it. If your bait stick doesn't line up exactly with your post, you can turn that in the lashing to get it exactly where you want it. All of that can't be done with notches because once you carve the notch, you're stuck. If it doesn't line up correctly, you're starting over. With this, all you have to do is rotate sticks to get things where you want them, and you're set and ready to go. Okay, let's talk about our deadfall for a minute. We've got about a 10-pound deadfall here, a half of a hardwood log, and it's soaking wet. That's big enough to kill up to a squirrel-sized animal. Remember, you're trying to suffocate the animal, not necessarily squash the guts out of him. You just want to suffocate him. 10 pounds is big enough for a squirrel. We've matched our trap component size to our deadfall. The simple thing about this is you've got one notch you have to capture. The rest is held in place automatically. So just make sure that your top fulcrum stick is straight and level and flat is right there. And you wouldn't even necessarily have to flatten that out. I just took one shaving off there with a knife really quick to make it a little more neat. Make sure everything's straight up and down. Everything's held in place. Again, I'm capturing it. Once I let that one notch go, I'm ready. All right, guys, that was a quick look at the Jamie Burley variation of the Figure 4 Deadfall. A little bit of tricks and tips on how to set that up and how to properly get that trigger to a nice hair trigger. Check out Jamie Burley's YouTube channel for more videos about this trap, as well as other useful tips and tricks for outdoor cooking and bushcraft. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video in this series as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.